If your message is strong, but your presence doesn't match it, this is your wake up call. Hi, I'm Stephanie Rose, founder of West Rose Media, and this is Icons, the podcast where we build brands that look expensive, lead movements, and actually make you money. If you're ready to stop blending in and start being seen as the leader that you really are, hit subscribe and let's make you unforgettable. Now, let's go to the show. Hello and welcome back to Icons, a West Rose Media podcast. I am very excited to have a new guest with us who has never been on the show before, and I'm very excited to have her here. Julie is here to speak to us about her iconic moment. Julie, would you like to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Stephanie, thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure to join you on your show. And congrats on the rebrand.
Thank you.
What should I start? I am Julie DeLucca Collins. I'm a business strategist, but I am also an author, podcaster, which things that I love to do. And I love to just talk about habits and confidence. That's my favorite thing. And one of the reasons that I do that is because I saw in my corporate career how many women struggled, right? And it's not them, it's me as well. We all struggle with creating the right habits, and it's the right habits that help us in our journey to confidence. So that's why I do what I do.
I love that. I'm so excited. I also feel like the habits are the thing that holds my whole life from falling apart. Um, so I strongly believe this. And I once read the book Atomic Habits, and then I was like, okay, all right. This I understand. This I can handle. Okay, so what we do to start off the show every single time is I have our amazing guests tell the listeners a moment where they felt like an icon, where they became an icon, where they had to do something so outside the box that it was deemed iconic. So, do you have a story like that that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'm going to share a little bit about becoming a TEDx speaker. And
Hey.
I remember the moment that I was on that TEDx stage and how I looked around the room and I thought, oh, this is it. Like I got here. And for so many years, that is something that had been on my vision board. I've been writing about it for a long time. And I took a little detour from it because I decided 2022 was gonna be my year, Stephanie. I was going to apply, and it was gonna be great. And like many of us, right, I took the plunge and did not start, with doing a lot of the pre-work. 'Cause I think that a lot of times we are waiting to be ready. And for a lot of the years prior to then, I was waiting to be ready. I was waiting for all whatever other alignments of the stars were going to come together. And I thought, nope, this is it. So it was about January of 2022 and several people here in the Hartford, Connecticut area where I live said, "Hey, the TEDx Hartford was amazing. You would be fantastic." And I thought, "Oh, they know what's on my vision board, and you should apply. You should apply." And of course, I knew the application was coming out, and the application was due on my birthday. I'll never forget. And I thought, this must be an omen that it's on my birthday that it's due, right? The stars are aligning. And many of my friends, my good friends, are really good friends with the organizers of TEDx. And I thought, well, that's even helpful. How wonderful. And I applied. I just took the application. I wrote my little thing. I sent it. And I thought, oh my God, how cool I am. And within a month, I got an email that said, "Thank you, but no thank you." And I was devastated because I thought, "What? What do you mean? I don't understand." And that was probably about May of 2022. And the remainder of 2022 went by. 2023 started, and it was about March, almost a year, to when I applied the first time. And I have a friend who also a coach, and he said, "Hey, Julie, have you been applying to TEDx?" I said, "No." He said, "But it's still on your list of the things you want to accomplish." And I said, "Yeah, but I got rejected." And he's like, "Honey, everybody gets rejected." He's like, "I'm taking a course and they tell you that you need to send out at least 99 applications." I thought, I don't have time for that. Like, are you kidding me? And he's like, "Well, but you have to apply. Keep applying." I said, okay, well, I'll get around to it. She's like, no, 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 we're going to apply right now. And he pulled out a list of a TEDx that was happening in Australia, and he makes me apply, not thinking, anything of it. And about a month later, I got an email from Australia saying, hey, you're a finalist. And I thought, what? I'm going to get to go to Australia. How fabulous is this? Right. And then I got a little bit more courage and I thought, you know what? I'm going to reapply to Hartford and reapply. So I reapplied to Hartford. In the meantime, I'm waiting to hear from Australia. I submit the application to Hartford, and then Hartford comes back and says, hey, you are a finalist. We received 300 application. You're one of 25 finalists. So we need to do an in-person interview. And I thought, yay, how fabulous is this? Could it be that I'm getting 3 TED Talks in 1 year? Because I had started a third application because now my confidence is all up in there. And so I fill out the last application, but I didn't submit it yet. Then I hear from Malden, thank you, no thank you. Then I hear from Hartford, we love your talk, but it's not related to anything that the theme of our TED event. And I thought, what? And then all of a sudden, my wheels kind of started going. And as I started to work on that third application, I realized, like, oh, wait a minute. It was like a big aha moment. There's a theme to every event for TEDx. And then what you're applying for has to align with that. It can't just be out of the blue.
Hmm.
So I talk about habits and confidence. But what I did is I related it to the event, which was the power of inclusion, which was the event. And I got accepted, and it was that moment that I was standing on stage, and it didn't go without a hitch. The sound wasn't working when I got on stage. And I thought, is
Oh,
this really happening?
it's my life.
And they said, "Okay, start all over because no one hears you." So I went backstage again, and then I came out, and my theme song started playing, and I decided to go along with it and make the crowd get up and sing and clap. And at that moment, I thought, "I made it. Here I am." So yeah, that's my moment.
I love that. That's so exciting. I think being on stage is one of those things that, like, you can't quite replicate the feeling of it.
100%.
It's
Yeah.
so fun and it's so exciting to be able to, like, share something that you share all the time, especially I feel that because I share on social media all the time, but, like, sharing it on a stage is like, oh, so much
Yeah.
better, so much better.
Yeah, and that was definitely an icon moment, and I think that, despite the failures and the false start, I think that what people should keep in mind is that an icon moment comes with the failures, it comes with the struggles, it comes with the false starts, but when you make it, you have to take a moment and really soak in that moment.
Yeah. Oh, I feel that so deeply. I'm always like, "On to the next thing. I got my goal, check mark,
Right
let's
there, yeah,
go.
yeah,
Next
yeah,
thing." And then I'm like, "Wait a minute."
yeah.
I had to do a recap recently of, like I had to, like, write a bio and, like, kinda do a recap of, like, my last year, and I was like, "Oh my god, so many things happened this year." Like, I think I need a minute to just, like, soak it in.
Mhm, mhm. That's the thing, there's a book, and I don't know if you've heard of the book, The Gap and the Gain. It's by Benjamin Hardy and, ugh, anyway, it's gonna come back to me. But the gap in the game is a concept that most of us, when we're working towards something or we have a goal, we're always focusing on the gap. The place where we are and the place where we wanna be and how far till we get there, right? And all the different things that we have to go through to get there. But the reality is that if we're focusing on the gain, we don't listen to ourselves or look back and say, "Oh, where did I come from? What did I do?" And if we celebrate those gains and stop paying attention to the big gaps, then all we can do is stay consistent, move forward, and then that creates the momentum that helps us get to whatever place we're getting to, right? Without the overwhelm and without the disappointment or the "Oh, I'm not enough," or "Look how far I still have to go, and will that ever come," right? Because that's what keeps us from having the right motivation and excitement about getting to our goals.
Oh, I love that concept. We actually have been talking about momentum a lot, in like the groups that I'm leading, and we've been talking about like this very normal cycle of like getting excited, like going to an event, doing something, getting super excited and being like, it's a whole new me, it's a whole new thing. And then like real life hits again and you're like, oh my God. And then you feel bad because you didn't keep that momentum. And then instead of being like, "Oh, that's a normal thing that happens," you, like, feel worse about yourself, and then you, like, get into this negativity, and then it's so hard to, like, get back up again. So, with all the stuff that you teach, what would you suggest for people who, like, feel like they're in that cycle?
Yeah, I have to go back to the habits, right? And I love that you talked about Atomic Habits. That's really one of my favorite books. The one thing, though, that I found with Atomic Habits is that there was a piece missing. And this is why I became a tiny habits coach, because I met Dr. BJ Fogg, who is the founder of the Behavior Lab in Stanford University. He's been studying behavior for over 20 years. All of the research in Atomic Habits, the book, is his research. So all of a sudden, it started to connect. And the reason why sometimes we end up losing that momentum is because we stop being motivated. When things get hard, our motivation leaves us. And one of the things that Dr. Fogg talks about is how if we do an action in such a small way that it's still moving us forward, but it's a tiny little bit of an action, so much that it doesn't require motivation, then we can create the consistency that keeps us going and allows us to get through those hums or when life is lifing or when motivation, who knows why we started, right? Because we all tend to forget why we were doing the thing. So that's one of the things that I typically tell clients is start small, build slowly, try to not look at again the gap, but really focus on the gain. Where did you come from? What did you do? And if you keep showing up every day or every step of the way, at least 1% better than before, you're building the evidence. And the evidence of the competency that we get at doing something is the one that gives us the confidence that we need.
Oh, I love that. Do you have any specific examples of, like, what kind of habits are those things?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you one of the things that I think many entrepreneurs struggle with, at least many of my clients, and that is staying on task with their business. There's, right? I mean, listen, I'm an entrepreneur too, and that happens to all of us. We are so excited to do the thing and then easily distracted, right, by the exciting thing that comes along and sidetracks us. So for many of my clients, one of the tiny habits that I encourage them to do is every morning when they come to their desk, when they're going to start work. And as you know, a habit needs to have the prompt or the existing behavior. So the existing behavior in this case is coming to your desk. So when you sit at your desk, rather than deciding what you're going to start first, you're going to open email, you're going to do that. You're going to look at your calendar and you're going to look at what your goals are. And, to show your listeners, I keep my planner in front of me. And yes, I keep a digital calendar, but I keep that and I look at it first thing in the morning. And I look at what my goals are for the year, for the quarter, for the week, and for the day. And then all I'm doing is looking at them. It doesn't mean that I'm going to start working on them and get right busy into something. That simple habit of at least recalibrating, taking a moment and focusing on what's important to me, then it gives me that direction. Now, of course, a habit, even that tiny little habit of just looking at your goals for the day, it's something that grows just like a plant. That's really what habits and plants have in common is that they can grow, they can expand, if they have the right watering, the right fertilizer, the right support and environment. So make sure that you have your goals next to you. Make sure that you take a moment to look at them. And then here's the most important part of creating habits and continuing to implement habits on an ongoing basis. Celebrate that you did it. And when I mean celebrate, just say, "Good job, Julie. You showed up like a girl who looks at her plan." Right? That simple thing signifies to your brain and it tells your brain, "Oh my God, I felt good. She gave me credit." And then your brain starts to create those new neural pathways that really cement that behavior as a new existing habit.
I love that. That's really great. I have my a lot of my goals as my the screensaver of my computer, and
Love
that
that.
seems to help me. I have like because I'm a very visual person, obviously.
Mhm.
I do photos and branding. So mine are all pictures of things that I want, and as soon as they come true, I replace the picture with the actual picture of my life. And I
You're
have a
so smart by doing that because our brain really identifies with the visuals. I typically will say to people, when if you're doing a vision board, motivational words are great, but that is what's better is having the picture of the thing. So you're, oh my God, so smart.
yeah, I love that. I have a whole vision book because I was like, a board isn't enough. I need a whole
Oh, I
book.
know, right?
So I just keep filling it and getting things, and I'm like, "All right, let's go."
Love that.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of the people that listen to the podcast are working on building their own personal brand. So what kind
Mhm.
of habits would you say would help them towards their goals of having a brand that's recognizable and that stands out and like really reflects them?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I will say is consistency. And a lot of times, we have so many different things that are going on and happening for us as entrepreneurs that again consistency becomes very difficult. So one of the biggest things that I encourage and I also do myself is I batch my content. Batching your content is something that you put in your calendar, you block out an hour or two, whatever it might be, and then set it and forget it, right? And sometimes, because if you're waking up in the morning and say, "Oh, how am I going to show up? How am I going to be visible?" Then you're just kind of being reactive to things. And if you want to create a consistent brand, right? If you're just posting whatever comes to mind or whatever thing you're gonna come up with or the quote of the day, it may not necessarily be aligned, it may not be with your brand, it may be contradictory to something you have before, and really what people like predictability, and I think that in branding and in creating that personal brand, knowing that I'm not just your visual brand, but what your values are behind what you speak about, what your expertise is, and how you're sharing that with the world. That's important. And if you're batching your content, you're going to create a way that takes away the pressure and then gives the signal to the people that is consuming content that, oh, that's Julie's stuff. I know it. The colors, the thing, it's the visual is the same, right? But more importantly, what I'm teaching, what I'm sharing is continuing to be the thing that people can expect from me. So batching your content is definitely one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to people. And it's hard and you have to create the habit and give yourself props for actually doing it.
Hmm. Yeah, we talk a lot about batching content and then scheduling it all around your core message so
Mhm.
that no matter what other exciting things happen, you can post
Right?
about those, but your core message is always going out to people because of that same thing. And I always help my clients batch those things and then schedule them because otherwise it gets boring. People are like, well,
Yeah.
I already talked about this yesterday. I'm like, well, you have to talk about it every day. But if you pre record it,
If
and
you pre-recorded, right,
it doesn't feel like
exactly.
you're doing it every day because you're not.
And you know what? I think that that's the other thing that I see, Stephanie, and I think that so smart for working with your clients and getting that done that way because our mind is gonna say, "Oh, I talked about it already," and then we're gonna stay away from it, but the reality is that in our society, and when it comes to marketing, it used to be 7 to 12 touch points with people. Now, I think the number that I heard somewhere was 25 touch points. And if we think, oh my gosh, I've been talking about this for too long, we'll never get that. We'll never be able to nurture a relationship with a potential client enough because we're not talking about the thing enough. So if we're doing it and have a very clear plan for this, then it's going to be easy to implement. It's done. And you don't have to feel like, oh, I already did it. I already talked about it. I don't know. And then you're not showing up appropriately like you should be.
I find that so often, especially when I start with a new client. I say, "Okay, like, have you been consistent?" They're always like, "Yes, I am so consistent." I'm like, "All right, let's look at your stats." And then it turns out they've posted
Right.
twice a week, and I'm like, "Oh, that's not consistent enough." They're like, "Well, I
Yeah,
feel like I'm doing a lot because I think about it a lot." I'm like, "I know. It's taking up brain space, but it's not actually getting on the pages."
that's
So we
right.
have to put less brain power into it and more actual output, and then it gets way more exciting and easy and
Yeah.
well, like, it's fun to jump on your stories and chat about something if all the other stuff is, like, handled and done, especially you have pre-made the content. We do that. We have whole weekends where we make content, and then we pre-make the content for, like, almost 6 months. We have, like, 12
Yeah.
different scenes, and it
That's
looks
so
like we've been
good.
to different countries, and it's, like, a whole thing. It's so
Yeah.
fun because then all that core messaging is out. They're set up and they have so much freedom and they have so much like brain space freedom, which is something they tell me all the time. They're like, "Oh, okay, now I have the brain space to do this giant thing
Yeah.
on the goal list that you're talking about. Now I have the brain space to do that because I don't have to think about the content every single day." And I'm like, yeah, it takes up
Yeah.
so much brain space to try and
100%. And you're so smart by helping them create that. And here's, the one thing that's going to happen, right? And I've been in business for over 5 years now, and it gets to a point that if you know your brand and your brand is consistent, your message is consistent, then yes, you plan your content in advance, but now you can also repurpose your content. And how great it is to have a library where you can go pull from as opposed to reinventing the wheel every single time. And really, that's another issue that entrepreneurs have is that we're always reinventing the wheel. We're always starting something new. And if you were going to the gym and you started to train for a marathon and then you decided, you know what, that's great. I'm going to go be a yoga teacher. You're going to have to start from scratch if you weren't doing that already. And there's no time for you to really create that traction that is important to get that momentum.
I love that. I think that it's so important that people get these tools. So you talked about the habit of looking at your goals. What's another habit that you personally use every single day?
Oh my God. Okay. So the
What a
rituals
classic.
is another really great thing. And I will say I don't do it every day as often at this time of year because I shift with the calendars, but once we start to get a little colder, a little, cozier, right? I live in New England, and I know that for me as an entrepreneur, that shift in time when it's darker most of the time is very difficult and it drains my energy. So one of the things that I love to do is I typically do it in the afternoon, is I will brew a cup of tea. And it sounds very simple. And what does that got to do with your business, Julie? A lot. Because when I brew a cup of tea, it forces me to actually not just pop the water in the microwave. I will boil the water, I will put it in my kettle, and I take that moment to really be ritualistic and mindful and in the moment and really just recalibrate my brain and give myself a break, walk away. It's hard for someone like me who is, always on the go and likes to be on the go to step away. But when I do take these moments of recalibrating, of giving myself space, of creating what my friend Katie Jeffcoat calls intentional margin, then it allows me to come back and be refreshed. It allows me to come back and be more focused and have the right energy to invest in the right action. So I find the rituals. And again, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to do it every day. In the summertime, I tend to have more of a downtime because it's summer. So I don't necessarily need that. But as we're really starting that end of the year push, at the beginning of the year excitement, those moments of ritual, of just stepping back, have been incredibly helpful and really something that I crave.
Oh, I love that. That's really great. My one of mine is that I every single day at lunchtime I go for a walk. So I
See,
live
that's
very
good.
close to the river, so I eat my
Oh,
lunch,
that's
go for a
nice.
walk, and even when it's cold and it's like something I do every single day. My dog knows exactly what time. He sits there and he waits for me. He's like, "It's time,
Aw.
let's go." But it's so
Isn't
good.
it amazing that you have that company and that accountability?
Yeah. And it's so nice because, like, every single day, I think, and then just like fresh air, movement, and like reset my brain. Like, okay, now I can try again. And I always split up my tasks between like the morning and the afternoon. And I do like the really intense things in the morning and then the less intense things in the afternoon so that I can just, after my walk, I'm like, okay, these are things that I can just like, with a lot less brain power, just
Yeah.
get them done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so good. I love that.
Yeah. It's gone a little off kilter lately. There's a strike right now for our schools, so nobody's in school, so all the kids are home,
Oh.
so but
Well,
exciting.
that's the thing, right? Life is gonna happen, and I think that, if we, at least understand, right, that these things can come and know, like, "Hey, I don't beat yourself up or don't, be overwhelmed over it." Said, "Okay, well, today it didn't happen, but I'm so glad I thought about it, that this is my walk time or this is my tea time." When you at least give yourself the space to say, "Oh, this was the time," and keep that awareness, then it's easy to come back into the action, whatever it might be, right?
Mhm. Definitely. So we've talked about, like, good habits. What do you think about when people are trying to break a bad habit? How would you go about that? I know that there's lots of entrepreneurs who are, like, they get stuck in, like, doom scrolling or getting distracted or, bad habits like that. How would you approach that?
Yeah. As with any habit creation, the habit deletion requires a little bit of some of the same ingredients, just used differently. So, we often talk about the right place for a habit, having the right time, having the prompts, the reminders, right? You can also use reminders to help you with breaking of habits. But the other piece when it comes to breaking habits, and this also is incredibly helpful when you're creating habits. You want to go ahead and use the power of the future self or the power of the identity that you want to have. So, for instance, if your habit is creating something to help you maybe get in shape or be more successful in your business or stay consistent with your social media, then you envision, right? What does that look like for the person that is going to be consistent with social media or showing up for her clients or whatever it might be? Now, the same way, if you wanna stop doom scrolling or wasting time or spending your wheels and things that don't necessarily move you, right? Then I want you to think about what does it look like for you? What is the identity of the person who maybe, takes a walk rather than picking up the phone and doing the scroll game, right? What does that look like? And what does that person feel like after they come back from the walk, right? Really envision that and give yourself that picture. And then remind yourself of who you want to become. Not, oh, I'm going to be that person, but say, hey, I am the person who goes for a walk after work, or I am the person who writes her wins after work rather than, working terribly all day. So these are some very small things, but that identity piece and leveraging the power of who you want to become, whether you're creating a habit or deleting one, it's going to be something that helps you. Often, I think, I don't know what I'm doing, or, how to solve this problem, or why do I keep showing up? It's hard to break habits, right? Because these are behaviors that are already encoded into our brain. They're super highways that are already there. And when we're starting to create new behavior, for instance, not scrolling or not you name it, right? We're fighting and we're creating a little path, maybe like a little dirt road next to a big highway. But the more that you give the opportunity for yourself to travel this new road, then those highways become a little desolate and become unused. And then you're seeing that your little dirt road is becoming bigger and you're paving it and you're expanding it. And then you're going to have that more so as the automation rather than that big old automation that you didn't like.
Mhm. Oh, that's very true. I know that in myself in business, it can feel like there's times where everything feels like extra strenuous, like things are the same things take extra effort, and I think that the more we do them, the easier that kind of thing feels, and it doesn't feel so, like Oh my god, especially when you're trying something new, right? Like the first time you podcast or the first time you
That's right.
write a book or do all these things, it feels like, "Oh my god, this is so difficult." But then as you continue, it
Yeah.
becomes
Yeah.
like, "Oh, now it's easy. Now I got this."
Yeah. And again, we don't start anything as an expert. All of us start as a beginner. And being kind to the beginner and cheering them on, just like we cheer our kids, right? When they start to walk. We don't say to them, "Oh my God, look at you crawling again. I thought you were walking," right? And that's the same kind of mentality we need to have when we're working at something new, when we're starting out, because compassion to ourselves, the one that we tend to not extend to ourselves, is the one that is going to sustain us more.
Mhm. Definitely. So, when you work with clients to help them with their business and their habits, so like what kind of things are you actually doing with them to help them along the way with their habits?
One of the biggest things that I do in this comes because of my education background. I feel that it's very important to really customize everything that I do. I do have group programs. I do have packages, right, that are very distinct. However, anytime that someone is starting with me, we do sit down and we have a very individualized strategy session because one, I need to get to know them. I need to understand what drives them, what their values are. What is it that we are going to be working on together and what their goals are, where they want to go. And then this way we are able to sit down in every session. Yes, do we still visit what they want to be working on, what they want to improve on? Yes, of course we do. But we also really specialize in seeing where are the gaps? Where are the habits that are maybe really keeping them from creating that consistency, showing up consistently? And again, the areas of their business that maybe they need the more support with. I think that there's a lot of women who start businesses, for instance, that come from a corporate environment and they're incredibly well versed at a lot of different things. But it's very important to know that how do you translate those skills to being an entrepreneur? And those are some of the things that I do with my clients is we figure out, well, what are the things that you do well? What are the things that can translate and how do you use that, right? But also, how do you then get the support or the help or where do you need that information, that support, that extra helping hand that is going to help you in the areas that you don't know? The other thing too that I really love to do with my clients and that I think is incredibly important is really running your business like a business. A lot of entrepreneurs just kind of like, oh, I'm going to put my shingle up and I'm going to do this and yay, me. And that's great. I don't want to dissuade anybody from starting, but I want you to think about, are you showing up as the CEO of your business or did you leave a 9 to 5 job to work 24/7? Right? And really analyzing that. And sometimes as a coach, it is not my job to tell you what to do. It's my job to remind you what you want and then point out all the different options and walk you through and say, well, what makes sense for you? And how do we work together at making this work for you? So that's a lot of how I support my clients, whether again, they're working one to one with me or they're part of the Confident You group. And yeah, that's one of the things that I feel and passionate about that it's not a one size fits all. It needs to be really tailored to that individual.
I love that. So, a lot of the clients that I work with, they're established, they know what they're doing, they feel like, oh, I got this all handled. But like secretly, they're like, oh my God, I'm barely holding this all together. So, what is something that you would suggest for somebody before they could even like have this call with you? Or if they're like, I need help like today, what is something they could implement that would start to help them like right away feel more in control of like the ups and downs of business and like how volatile it can feel sometimes?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of us that are seeing that the landscape of business and everything going on in the world is unknown, right? There's a lot of variables that we cannot control. So one of the first things, and if you're listening today, right, and you're not sure, again, you've been running a business, you've been getting income consistently, but all of a sudden things are not working. I want you to think about and just kind of revisit something that from time to time, right, we need to go back to. And that is, what is the demand for what you offer? Because there might have been a demand when you started a year ago, 5 years ago, but maybe the demand has changed. I'll give you an example. One of the companies that I used to work for, this is when I started my career back in early 2000, that's so many years ago. They're a national tutoring company here in the States. And their main bread and butter, their main staple of what they offered, that again, they became a very successful multi-million dollar company, was offering tutoring in reading and math to students who were struggling in school. Because most of the time, when kids struggle in school, it's because they either didn't know the math well enough in their foundations or their reading skills were terrible and they needed to go and have all of these gaps kind of solidified. Over the course of the years, right, education has shifted. How we learned, how our students are gaining information has changed. Now, all of a sudden, we have a lot of programs that are online that help and tutor and help with those very basic skills. So rather than this company saying, oh, wait a minute, let me go and chase that customer down and compete with the online programs, they realize that the needs of their customers have changed, right? It's not that there's no customers out there, it's just that what the customer is looking for is different. So now the company is offering tutoring in subject areas, right? History, trigonometry, the areas where the computer can't necessarily customize, but a tutor, a teacher, a one-to-one program can. So really be able to understand that you're still going to be doing what you do best, but you may be doing it in a different way because the needs of your customer have changed. And sometimes that really is something that for us entrepreneurs, especially if we've had a level of success and a business that's been running, we need to from time to time revisit because the world changes and we need to be able to change with it.
Yeah, the world is changing so fast. And especially with social media, if that's the main way that you communicate with your audience or bring in new clients, all of those things, being able to shift quickly is so important
Yeah. Yeah,
because
the
by the
algorithm changes all the time. It's funny you said that today because I do a lot of client coaching on Tuesdays and the subject of social media has come up and I've left my clients with the same question. If social media was going away today, how are you growing your business? Because you can't build your business in rented ground, right? And is social media important? Absolutely. Do we need to have a presence? Of course. But make sure that you're creating the systems behind the house so that if people are connecting with you there, people are then moving into your funnel. They're coming into your email list. You're nurturing those relationships. You're building the connections that eventually get these people from followers to clients. Because a follower and a like and a connection in social media doesn't necessarily mean that that's the person who's going to give you money. There's a lot of work. And, the work that you're doing with individuals is helping them create that through line.
yeah, that we talk endlessly about how vanity metrics like likes and views mean nothing if people aren't buying. And so often people are like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like I'm making posts, but people like them, but nobody's buying. I'm like, well, obviously you're entertaining enough to watch, but you don't have enough authority for them to actually be like, yeah, this person can help me. And we work so much on building that and like having the right visuals and having the right kind of content can help you build that. And then people are like, oh, yeah, she's the expert I need instead of, wow, isn't she entertaining? Like,
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. Entertainment is great, but being the solution is better.
Way better. Oh, thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. And so if you're going to leave our audience with one thing, what is one thing that you would say to them that would help no matter what kind of season they're in their life? What is the one thing you want to leave them with?
Well, we're getting into a season in which we're going to be wrapping up the year. We're going to be starting something new, and we always have these seasons. I want you to know that, you're doing a lot of really great things. Number one, write a list of all the things that you've been working on and ask yourself, is this working? How is it working? What is the result? And then you're going to be surprised because there's going to be things that you think are not working that are, and there are going to be things that are maybe not working, but really are not working. And you need to kind of delete them and make room for the things that do move you forward. So make that list and then plan accordingly. Decide, what am I taking into the new season? Is it, it is maybe creating conversations in the DM, something that really has gotten people to know me better. Great. Let's do that. Or perhaps maybe you've been pitching yourself to a lot of podcasts, but you haven't seen the return on that. Well, then maybe that's where you allocate less time and you allocate less effort into that. So really plan accordingly.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your knowledge. I'm going to put all of your links in the show notes, but where would you like people to come and connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is to go to my website, which is goconfidentlycoaching.com. And then you can find my social media there. And again, all my best resources are on my website, goconfidentlycoaching.com. There's a resource page.
Perfect. And I'll put all those links below so you can easily access them. Thank you so much, Julie. This has been a really great conversation. I love talking about habits. It's one of my special interests for sure. And I
Amazing.
really, really appreciated you coming on and sharing all your knowledge with everyone. So make sure that you go follow Julie and share this episode with a friend, especially an entrepreneurial friend who maybe needs a little kick in the butt with the habits. Send it to the friend you're always sending a meme to instead of working. And that is the person that you both probably need this conversation. So thank you very
Amazing.
much for being on the show. And to all of our listeners, please share. And if you would love to be on the podcast, make sure you head to my website and check out the application form. And I would love to hear your story too. So thank you, Julie. And thank you to everyone. And I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If this episode hit home, take a second to follow the show and share it with someone who's ready to lead louder. And if you are done playing small, come find me on Instagram at Westeros Media because your vision deserves to stay alive without you having to chase it. See you next time.